welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Allie.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is our third episode in Euros previews, which can only mean one thing. We are tackling Group C. The most intriguing, I feel, because we've got a lot of unknown quantities in this group.
Is it the most intriguing, do you think, over Group D?
No, because Group D we know is the group of death, and we have a good idea of the players, the teams, and everything else. There are some unknown quantities in Group C, so I feel like they're the most intriguing.
I feel like there's one unknown quantity and two known quantities, but all of them very intriguing. And then one, like, what is Poland?
They're the most intriguing of all, and we'll get onto that when we talk about Poland.
This is a fun one. This is kind of like the first group we have that has multiple heavyweights. So Groups C and D are going to hit hard because there's multiple heavyweights in this one and in the next one. And I'm really pumped for the two that are in this one.
So in Group C, if you're not aware, it is Germany, Poland, Denmark, and Sweden.
I am pumped. Let's do it. To Sweden. The team that I might have the most mixed emotions about. Because part of me can't stand this squad. And part of me feels so terribly for them because Sweden truly are always the bridesmaid, never the bride of the international football scene, Allie.
True facts. True facts when it comes to the Sweden national team is they come so close every time. They've been in multiple finals, they've been in multiple semi-finals, and they don't seem to have that killer instinct to just take them over.
Right. I mean, that's it. So we spoke in 2023 during the World Cup to the one and only Hedvig Lindahl, and she said exactly that, Allie. It's that she felt like this squad was missing that mental aspect. It wasn't tactical. It wasn't on the field anything. It was the mentality, the killer instinct. And the question was, can they overcome it? Can they change that? Can they get that killer instinct? And Hedvig Lindahl drew it all the way back to like the deep roots of Swedish culture, and that's not how they are raised in Sweden, and that people from Sweden just don't have that in their body, in their soul. And when you link it like that, it feels like, oof, can this ever happen for this squad?
Again, it's one of those things that I don't know, and I don't think so at the same time.
Ooh, brutal.
I don't know, but I haven't seen much change in the Sweden mentality. You can change the personnel, you can change the manager, you can change everything else, and they've got a very good manager coming in after this tournament. Tony Gustafsson, who was in charge of the Matildas, is coming in and is going to be in charge.
We love Tony.
Yeah, exactly, in Sweden. So maybe he will have the missing piece for them, but that's after this tournament.
I think that he's going to, yeah, unfortunately that's after this tournament. I'm excited to see them in the World Cup, though, because, I mean, we see what Tony was able to do with the Matildas and how far he brought them. And I think that he's going to do wonders with Sweden. But like you said, he's not here yet. So let's talk about what's here.
Yeah, so you look at their Nations League performance, which is obviously the recent thing that we are marking all of these teams by. They topped their group with 3 wins and 3 draws. They were in the same group as Denmark, Wales, and Italy. So you'd expect a bit, no offence to the other teams that were in that group, you would expect a bit more of a dominant performance from Sweden. They do seem to have been ranking it up because obviously, as we mentioned, the last result was against Denmark and that was a brutal 6-1 win for Sweden. But you look at their results thing, they drew with Wales twice, 1-1. They drew 0-0 with Italy. They beat Denmark 2-1 in the first game, and obviously that's 6-1, and then they beat Italy 3-2. Again, you'd expect there to be a bit more of a killer edge in that group, a bit like we saw with Germany in their group, and we haven't had it, is the honest answer. They didn't qualify for the Olympics, which was quite shocking. They got the bronze medal in the World Cup after losing the semi-final to eventual winners Spain. They beat Australia in that bronze medal match 2-0. They had a very infamous knockout of the USA in that tournament.
No comment.
the image of that ball still haunts Sarah's dreams.
I'm not pleased that this is coming up again.
The only reason I do that is I remember dearly. I remember laughing. I was watching the game with my mother and I was laughing, and she went to me, "Don't laugh. England play tomorrow, and if they get knocked out, your co-host will laugh at you." 100%. And then we didn't. And then we got through, so I was allowed to laugh. So
why do I feel like it's 2 years after it happened, and we've already spoken about this moment like multiple times in the past week or two? And this is the Euros. Why are we talking about it?
Because we have to.
Moving along. But I want to talk about their current coach. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I want to talk about Euros 22 because it wasn't a great performance. They managed to get to the semi-finals, and they eventually got battered by England. Everybody remembers the infamous Alessia Russo backheel flick.
I remember seeing it in person.
Yes, we were.
What
both
a
at
flex that was.
Yeah, we were both at that game.
Yeah, we were.
But there was again, they played so much like Australia used to, and the way that Denmark do, in the fact that they played it all through the same player. In this case, it was Aslani.
Oh gosh, I remember being so annoyed.
And she never passed the ball. Ever. Even if she was coming up against 3 different players, she wouldn't knock the ball to the side to thing.
Yeah,
and so,
it was an issue on both fronts. It was that the team was relying too heavily on her, and that she was also relying too heavily on herself. I blame both parties, because she would not pass it, which is my number one ick in soccer. And 2, and nobody was stepping up either. It was, that England-Sweden semifinal game, there was always this feeling that Sweden, when was Sweden going to start to turn it on? When were Sweden going to start to turn it on, right? It's a semifinal. It was okay, we're waiting for them to turn it on because it's a semi and they have to, but then they never did. And that's that killer instinct. Again, it never turned on.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I haven't seen much different since that 2022.
And it's the same coach, right?
Yep, it's the same coach. So Peter Gerdhsen, please forgive my pronunciation, has been with them. Close enough. They have been with Sweden since 2017. As we mentioned, he's leaving at the end of this tournament. It's going to be Tony Gustafsson. Obviously, he has led them to multiple semi-finals and multiple finals, but they haven't lifted a trophy since 1984.
Wow. Yeah, 1984 was a long time ago, Allie. They're going to play Norway in their sole friendly leading up to the Euros, which will be Thursday, June 26th. I think that'll be a really fun matchup. And let's talk notable names, because, again, this squad is pretty stacked. I think that they're a curious one because they've been changing around formations a lot in the Nations League. So, I don't think that they have a best 11. A true best 11 going into this tournament. We might see multiple different starting 11s. Hey, we might even see multiple formations coming out of them just in the group stage. You never know. They've experimented with a 4-3-3 and then a couple different variations of a 4-5-2. So that's been either a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-4-1. And I'm getting really kind of inside baseball, but I think that this is pretty notable because that can either be a big flex and a big strength that you have the ability to be malleable and shift between formations depending on who you play, or it can indicate a squad that just simply doesn't know. Think USA World Cup 2023. They didn't know their best 11. They didn't know their best formation. And it can either be that, which is a big red flag, or it can be a positive. And I think the jury's still out on which one it is for Sweden right now.
So should we talk notable names?
Let's do it.
Talk notable names, because the thing is, this squad, you look at them and you're I would say 99% of them play European football. There's one on this list that plays in America, and that's Hannah Lundqvist, who plays for San Diego Wave. Again, you're looking at, they've got stars that they've been in their squad for so long. Aslani has been called up again. Magda Eriksson, Natalie Bourne of Chelsea. There's a load of ex-Arsenal players because they all got let go in the summer.
Sophia Jakobsen, Fridolina Rolfo, of course.
JRK from Chelsea.
You mentioned Aslani. My biggest questions for this team is, number one, what type of role will Aslani have? Is she going to be a starter? Is she going to be coming off the bench? Obviously, we know she just spent her time in the second division in the championship with the London City Lionesses, who will now be in the WSL, but she just spent a year playing the second division football. And then number two, is there enough firepower?
Nope.
This team doesn't have, you say no, Allie?
I'm saying no.
I also say no, because this team doesn't have that quintessential goal scorer. You look around and you see a lot of people who can score, and I'm going to throw a couple names out there, and this is no disrespect to these two players, but like I look at Stina Blackstenius and Sofia Jakobsen. Both of those players are incredible. They can absolutely score goals. They have done so for their club, and they've come up in big moments. But they are not relied on as the sole goal scorer for their clubs. Like, you look at Sofia Jakobsen. You look at Stina Blackstenius, for example, and she played her best football for Arsenal when that pressure was not on her, when she could play more of the supporting role. So do you just have a lot of supporting role players who can score, and then when push comes to shove, who's going to shoulder the burden? And in an international tournament, you need that player that you can rely on when push comes to shove.
I think it says a lot that their top scorer in Nations League was a midfielder. Their top scorer was Philippa Angeldal, who plays for Real and used to play for Man City. She's the one that scored the most.
It's a delicate balance, right? Because we talk about these teams that just have that sole goal scorer, and that's not good enough either. You need both. You need that quintessential natural goal scorer, and you need the supporting talent. And one without the other, it's a worry. It's a red flag, and that's my biggest red flag for Sweden. I think when I say they've shifted a lot of personnel, a lot of formations, they don't have a best 11. The only things that have stayed intact through all of these changes are the two center backs and goalkeeper. So that core spine in the back in Natalie Bjorn, who plays for Chelsea, and Magda Eriksson, former Chelsea, now Bayern. Those two are the center backs. And the goalkeeper, Jennifer Falk, who plays for BK Häcken, who some people might remember did a great run in the Champions League last year. That's a great three. But when the rest is up in a question mark, that's not ideal.
If that's their spine, then I'm concerned, because Bjorn spent a lot of half of last season for Chelsea injured. And is she fit enough? Is she being rushed back? Is this another Millie Bright situation? Like, these are the questions you got to ask Sweden fans.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. I just looked at the names and I was like, that's a great core. That's a great back line. They're going to run stuff. But then what does the midfield look like? What does the forward line look like? On a good day, it can be terrifying. You can look at their lineup and think, hey, this team can beat anybody on any given day. But we have to throw out what the red flags are, because they are in a group with Germany, who look pretty as close to unbeatable as we've seen Germany look in a while. Like, it's hard to find a crack in there, and the cracks are a little too easy to find in Sweden. Despite all of that being said, I think that they're going to be a really fun team to watch. I think that they are going to try to work the ball through the midfield. I don't think that they're going to sit back and play counterattack. I think that they're going to really try to take it to Germany and try to win this group. And you never know.
To the Deutschland and Germany. These are a great team. I'm excited by this team. They are probably the most successful team in the Euros. They have won 2 World Cups and been runners-up. They have won 8 Euros, and were runners-up in the last Euros, and we'll get onto that. They have won 1 Olympic gold and 4 bronze medals, and became 3rd place in the Nations League tournament that happened last season. So they are probably the most successful women's team pedigree in this entire competition.
Truly, the only fumble was the World Cup, and it was a big one. Not to keep bringing it up, but like, we have to. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to outright say it. Germany, in my mind, are absolutely among the favorites to win this tournament. And that's kind of crazy to say because of what happened in the World Cup, but they did, like you just mentioned, they had a great performance in the Olympics, right? They got the bronze medal. They beat Spain to get the bronze medal, and they looked good. We didn't know what to expect because that was 2024. It was a year after the World Cup, the blunder. But Germany, in my opinion, is probably the most dangerous because they're at a point where they had this young generation coming up that had just been a little too young to make big impacts in tournaments. And now they are all in their prime, and they are scary good.
They are scary good. Let's go through some of their recent performances. As we mentioned, in the Olympics, they beat Spain 1-0 to get the bronze medal. In the World Cup, they shockingly didn't get out of their group. They were the big moments. They were 1-for-1.
Never forget landing in Sydney, looking at my phone and seeing the score and refreshing it and being like, that can't be right. Hang on. What did I miss? What did I miss while I was flying over the ocean? Wow.
Yeah, so they beat Morocco, they lost to Colombia, and then drew with South Korea, which meant that they finished third. For my own amusement, I often think of the infamous Pop photo, which is because she got player of the match in that
about that.
In the last game against South Korea, she got player of the match, but her team had been knocked out of the tournament, so there's just this I don't want to be here face.
I don't know why. For some reason, I really thought that it was Morocco that they played in the last game, but I know it's not. But I had it in my mind that way. But
no,
my memory's not that.
It's
good.
Because it looked like they were going to go through, and then South Korea drew in the 80-something minute.
Right. My goodness.
And it's a very it's not to laugh. Schadenfreude in the German words, but it just makes me laugh.
That's your Duolingo for you.
There you go. That's my Duolingo for me. And then in the last Euros, they were runners-up to England. But previous to that, they'd won it 6 times in a row.
That's wild.
Yeah. So in that run, they beat Austria in the quarterfinals and then France at the semi-finals to get on. And then lost to England 2-1. So...
Oof, what a finals that was. Can we just reminisce for a quick second about what a finals that was?
Yeah, my favourite moment was I was sat in front of some German fans, and when they equalised, they jumped up and then turned around to us and went, "Just us?" And we're like, "Yes, just us."
Chloe Kelly, the hero in that game, we'll all remember in the 110th minute, scoring that goal in extra time in Wembley, in London. Wow. Okay, anyways, moving it along. They've been playing Nations League, Allie.
Yes, they have. They are in the top grouping for Nations League, and they have absolutely dominated their group. They've won 5, drawn 1. Their only draw was with the Netherlands. And in that group, it was a strong group. It's Netherlands, Austria, and Scotland. So to get 5 wins out of that group of teams is phenomenal. So yeah, Germany really are firing on all cylinders at the moment.
Yeah, I'll also say, of course, every team plays the others twice. So that draw versus the Netherlands was 1 game versus the Netherlands. The second game versus the Netherlands, Germany won 4-0. It was, and you look at that scoreline and you can see what this team is truly capable of. They were able to hold the Netherlands to just 2 shots on target and 0 goals in that entire game, which is a feat in and of itself. And I think that says everything for how they're rolling into this tournament, despite kind of 2 big names not being on the roster for 2 different reasons.
Yeah, so the aforementioned Pop retired from international duty at the end of last season. She notably, in the 22 Euros, she scored in every game she played in, but then pulled up injured. Literally in the warm-up of the final, it was announced that she was not coming on and was substituted. So that was a huge miss for Germany. And then Lena Oberdorf is still recovering from that ACL injury, so therefore has not been called up.
Those are huge names. I think going into the last Euros, those would probably have been my 2 biggest names to write down on a piece of paper of who to watch. I remember so clearly in the last Euros, which admittedly was still 4 years ago, but I think it's still worth mentioning. Pop was going into that Euros as not the starter. Schuler, and a very young Schuler, was starting at that number 9 role. She was playing great. She then got hurt. Pop ended up starting because Schuler was a little bit hurt. Pop ended up playing incredible. Pop then got hurt. Schuler ended up starting in the final, but she had been a little out of sync because she'd just been hurt for the majority of the tournament. And I think that really hurt Germany in the Euros finals.
100%. 100%. Should we talk about this Euros? Because they have announced their squad. So we know
Let's do it.
The 23 that are coming to
Let's do it.
Switzerland. The big names is Ann-Katrin Berger.
Yeah,
in
AKB,
goal.
baby.
She had been out of favour for a long time in the German
Yeah.
squad, played her way back in, played phenomenal in the Olympics, has been doing bits for Gotham, and is the first name on the squad sheet.
My biggest blunder was going into the Olympics. I said I did not think she should be starting, and she had the tournament of her life in the Olympics, as you just said, and 100% is slated to start in goal, has been starting in goal, is still the number one on this German sheet. And I'll also mentioned how young this team is. This is the next generation of players that has been super young and is now completely gelled as a unit, and they are all in their prime. Like I said, right at the top of this is a very dangerous squad. You want to look at the players, like if we look at the slated starting 11, because Germany's been really consistent in their Nations League in their starting 11. So we can kind of look at that and say, we think we know what the best 11 will be for Germany, which, but as a side note, not even a side note, by the way, is the best way to be going into a tournament. There are teams that don't know their best 11, and that is exactly the opposite of how you want to go into a tournament. You want to go in very, very clear about what your best 11 is and have them gelled, and that's how Germany are right now. And you look at the ages across the field, Ann-Katrin Berger is the only projected starter over the age of 27. Not even over 30, over the age of 27. Around the field, in terms of field players, everyone is between the ages of 24 and 27, except for the left back Ket, who is 20 years old. This is a very young, but not too young, just like a squad completely in their prime with a veteran goalkeeper in the leadership role at the back. And I don't know if you want to draw it up, if you could draw it up any better than that, right?
I was going to say, this is the sweet spot. This is the absolute sweet spot for any national team, in the fact that you have got players that have still got youth on their side, but they've played so many times together that they know each other so well that they can practically read each other's mind. You always want a more experienced goalkeeper because they can play on for longer. And it's just, and you look at the players they've got and it's just the creme de la creme. Germany are scary.
Very scary right now. I'd almost go as far as to say as this is the moment this federation has been waiting for, this exact moment. And perhaps anything less than a final, I'm not going to say than a win-win, but anything less than a final is going to be supremely disappointing, because this is the squad they've been building towards. This is the moment they've been building towards with this squad. And to go out and win a major tournament with this squad is exactly what they're hoping and expecting to do. Let's talk about some of these players. Let's call them out.
I was going to say,
who are you most excited for?
Always Gwyn. Julia Gwyn was an amazing youth player in the last Euros. Again, has got better and better with experience.
Say it with your German accent. Gwyn.
No. Gwyn.
There you go.
Gwyn.
There you go.
I mean, Debritz, Bull, Brand, Nuskin, Schuler. Like, need I go on? Like,
yeah.
These names are phenomenal.
For me, I think the biggest callouts are going to be obviously the two center backs that sit in front of AKB, which is Gnack and Minge. And then obviously with the absence of Lena Oberdorf, Germany used to play just a sole six. They used to play a 4-3-3 in the very traditional style, where you have the traditional six, which is the traditional defensive center mid, and then you have the 8 and the 10 sitting above her. But without somebody like Lena Oberdorf, who's, a generational talent, very few people have the capability to lock down that defensive role by themselves. Germany are now playing with dual sixes. So they play kind of like a 4-3-3, but with the dual six and then the one number 10 sitting above them, which could also be like a 4-5-1, depending on how you look at it. It's really important how the dual sixes play together. And then we already mentioned it, but let's maybe put a fine point on it. Schuler will be essentially just taking over duties as that true center forward, as that true number 9, and that goal scorer that Germany leans on from Alexandra Popp, and how she plays and how efficient she is in this tournament is really going to matter. I got one more thing. I will say, though, with that being said, Germany have so many goal scorers, and that's also part of what makes this team dangerous. It's not just that they have so many goal scorers. They have so many goal scorers plus somebody like Schuler, who is a very natural goal scorer that you can lean on when those other players aren't necessarily producing. It's all like, can you look at this squad and point, if you have to point to a weakness, Allie, what is the weakness of this German squad?
It's hard because I think the weakness is they are going to miss Oberdorf. That's probably the only the fact that they have to have two players do that one player role, which means that they can't be as free going forward as they would want to. So their weakness is missing Oberdorf.
I think that's totally fair. It's the fact that they're now having to play that like 4-2-3-1, which is not as an attacking oriented formation as a normal 4-3-3 would be. I'd agree. But that's crazy that that's like the main weakness we're going to point to.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm most excited about with this German team?
What?
I want to know who their little mascot's going to be. Because I would
give everybody the context on that. If people don't know what you're talking about, give everybody the context.
If people do not know what I'm talking about, is Clara Ball for the World Cup crocheted a little koala bear that was called Waru, which is an Aboriginal word. And he was everywhere, like in every social media post. He was on the bench with them. He had took pictures of him sightseeing, and everybody was
so
in love.
cute.
Well, I was in love with Waru.
Everybody was in love with Waru.
That was like the sad thing when Germany went out so early. I was like, no more Waru.
Truly.
And then she did another one whose name escapes me for the Olympics. So I'm assuming there will be a Euros mascot.
I forget what the Olympics one was too. Do you remember what animal it was?
Oh, now you're asking. No, I don't know. But all I know is that I'm excited for whatever the German mascot will be.
Me too. Over to Poland. Poland, more of a question mark, I think, than other teams as we come into the tournament. So that almost makes us more excited to get to talk about them and share with all of you what we have learned and what we know. So let's talk Poland, Allie.
Let's talk Poland because they are a huge question mark because this is their first ever tournament. This is their first ever tournament.
Major tournament. Or tournament.
Tournament. Because they've never qualified for the World Cup. They couldn't qualify for the Olympics last time round because they were in Nations League B. And that was only for Nations League A to try and qualify for. And then they went through 2 series of playoffs in the Nations League to qualify for this Euros. So this is their first ever tournament. So unless you've been watching a lot of Nations League, you're not going to know a lot about this team.
So let's talk about them. Poland. What are we expecting, Allie?
So they are an interesting squad, I have to say. They are currently still in Nations League B. They topped their group with a similar win record to Germany. In fact, it was 5 wins, 1 draw. They're in a group with...
But we should say League B, makes a really big difference that it was from League B.
It does, because their group was Northern Ireland, Bosnia, Herzegovina and Romania, and their only draw was against Bosnia. They are a very young squad. They have a lot of players that play in the Polish and German leagues. Those are the 2 main leagues that they play. But they still have a couple of old players that play in the bigger European leagues of like England, Spain and France, as well as Germany.
Well, that makes it really interesting because if there's some players that play in the German leagues, then there are some players that are very familiar with obviously a lot of the players on the Germany national team. And that could always make for an interesting matchup.
Exactly. So they are really interesting. It's also really interesting is that their coach is has been with them since 2021, so therefore has led them to this qualification. But all of her previous coaching was for the unders. So it's been under 15s, under 17s and under 19s. This is her first senior squad.
I kind of love that, though. She worked her way up. There's a difference between coaching a national team and coaching a club team as well. And so while she might have experience with first the 15s, then the 17s, then the 19s, she has a lot of experience as a head coach of a national team. And beyond that, she's a former Polish player. She had a senior career playing for Poland. And she's been coaching now for, 15 years? She's got quite a bit of time under her belt. So I'm interested. I mean, obviously, she's done great work with this squad to bring them into this tournament. So I'm interested to see kind of what comes of this. As somebody who's been watching Nations League, what kind of style of play are you expecting from Poland?
I'm expecting quite a defensive style of play, if I'm honest. Not just from what I've seen in Nations League, because that's not because it's a lower league, so they are coming up against some huge opposition which they haven't played in a long time. Because they're a huge goal scoring nation. You look at their results in Nations League. They beat Romania 3-0. They beat Northern Ireland 4-0. They beat Bosnia 5-1. You know what I mean? So they are a high scoring against that kind of opposition, but that's not the opposition they've got in the group.
No, I feel like maybe I'm going to kind of maybe place them in people's minds in terms of abilities. We've already talked about Switzerland and kind of where they fall in the scale of teams in this tournament. Poland did play Switzerland a year ago in 2 friendlies, and they split both of those friendlies. The first one, Switzerland won 4-1. The second one, Poland won 1-0. So I would say, based on some results we're seeing, I would kind of equate Poland and Switzerland on relatively level footing. I feel like you think more highly of Switzerland than I do. So do you agree with that or no?
No, I would agree. I would say that's about right. I will say that Poland has one massive advantage compared to Switzerland, and her name is Payor.
So let's talk players, speaking of.
Yeah, let's talk about players. So the big name, the 2 names that if you're following women's football you will probably know is obviously Payor, who plays for Barcelona. Phenomenal goal scorer for Barcelona. Just scores for fun, really. And then the other one is Szczesnik, who is West Ham's number 1 goalkeeper and will probably be Poland's number 1 goalkeeper within this tournament. Those are the 2 names that you're really going to know in this squad.
I think that matters, though, because Iwa Payor is a forward. She's a goal scorer.
Yep.
And so you kind of add that to a team like Poland that you're saying is going to sit pretty defensively, and we can already see the style of play that they're going to play, right? They're going to kind of park the bus, hope for a counterattack. And when you put somebody like Payor up at the counter, I don't know, things can happen. Is it enough to squeak out of a group with Sweden and Germany? Probably not, unless something wild happens. I'm getting ahead of myself, but it certainly makes them a really interesting one to watch.
I'm going to equate them to Portugal. If we're going to equate them to other teams, I'm going to equate them to Portugal in the fact that I can see them being a big disruptor, especially if they're going to stick to that low block defensiveness. Yeah. Is it going to be hard for certain teams to break them down in their group? Yes, I can definitely think of one team it's going to be really hard for them to do. So I would say that Poland...
What is that one team?
That would be Denmark.
Yeah, I figured.
It would be Denmark. I'm going to be honest, it's going to be Denmark. But I would, definitely say to them that they are going to play the disruptor role, which is what I envision Portugal playing. But they intrigue me because they are such an unknown entity in going up against opposition like this.
We love seeing teams make their first tournament, make their first World Cup, make their first Euros. So I'm pumped to watch them.
To Denmark and... the team that is Denmark.
Oh, the team that is Denmark. I put them in the same category as Norway in a certain capacity. And that is that I've been duped by them before, and I shall not be again. That is how I feel about Denmark. Do not be fooled by the huge names that you will see on this roster. Yeah. Because they will disappoint you.
They will. And if we look at current form in Nations League, they're 3rd place behind Sweden and Italy, but above Wales. They've got 3 wins and 3 losses. Their last game was a super heavy defeat to Sweden, 6-1. Olympics did not qualify. World Cup got to the round of 16 but lost 2-0 to Australia. Euros last time round didn't get out of the group. But we're in a group of death, I will say, because they were in the same group as Germany, Spain and Finland. So they had 1 win, 2 losses, fiver to guess which one was their one win.
I think it was Finland.
Correct. And it was only a 1-0 as well, so it wasn't the most convincing of wins. They've also gone through a lot of different managers fairly recently. Their current manager is not sticking around. He is gone at the end of this tournament. Pretty much odds on to have taken the Manchester City job. So, yeah.
How do you feel like that impacts a team going into a tournament with a coach, knowing that that coach will no longer be part of the team after the tournament? Or do you think it does? I think it could impact either in a positive or a negative way, or it could kind of just be nullified.
Yeah, I do think it can be I don't think it'll be nullified. I do think it can either swing wildly one way or the other. It's either going to be, we want to give him the best send-off, so let's go out and try and do our absolutely best in this tournament. I will say they haven't had long with him because he's literally been in charge since 2023. So it's not like he's probably a well-beloved coach. Or it could be, well, he's got one eye on the door. Why should we bother? And unfortunately, with the performances we've seen from Denmark recently, it seems to be the latter rather than the former. They've not been great. They've not been great.
I'll say that the Jakob Mikkelsen is who is slated to take over at the helm for Denmark, 44-year-old who's joining from the Norwegian men's side, signed a contract through 2028. I mean, I feel like the way to talk about Denmark is to just literally rip through who they have on their team and also what's gone wrong in previous tournaments. Would you agree?
I agree.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the big name, the name that's on everybody's lips when it comes to Denmark is, of course, Pernille Harder. That is the name. She is their captain. She is their top goal scorer. She is everything for Denmark. So I would say that, that's the name that is on everybody's lips when it comes to Denmark. There is a few, again, if you follow the WSL, there'll be a few players that used to play in the WSL or currently do. You've got Holmgaard for Everton. You've got Emma Snell, who is at Fiorentina, formerly of West Ham. You've got Fairfield. You've got Cole, who's at Roma. You've got Brunn, who's at Real Madrid. So they do have, they are so confusing because on paper, you look at the squad that they've got and the teams that this squad plays for, you're like, why do they not do better?
Yeah, I think that it's a few things. I think they haven't gelled. I think that there's way too much pressure put on Pernille Harder, thinking that she can carry this entire team on her back. That's not how international football works. You can't have one star and expect to make it into the finals or, frankly, even the knockout rounds of a tournament. They can carry you only so far. And the supporting cast, there's just not as deep of a bench as there needs to be, and not enough goal scorers. I mean, let's look at some past results, specifically about the goals. I'm not as worried about this team's, well, I'm like, should we worry about this team's defense? I think it's a problem on both ends. They can leak goals, and then they have trouble putting goals away. And it's kind of like, depending on the day, which one is going to be the bigger issue. You mentioned their Nations League. I mean, it's funny. The last Nations League game that they will have played going into the Euros is against Sweden, losing 6-1 to Sweden. Yep. And then the first team they're going to play on match day 1 of the group stage is Sweden.
And I'm looking at their goalkeepers, and all of their goalkeepers are great, but they play in the Danish league, and I think there's one that plays in the Italian league.
Yeah. And we've already talked about the competition levels, right?
Yeah. It's not good.
No, I will say, good for the Danish league. The news broke in January of this year that the Danish league took a huge step forward with a new contract and minimum wage. This might sound like the bare minimums and the basics, but it is. Previously, these people who were playing in the first division of the Danish league did not have minimum wage, insurance, pension, anything like that. They finally signed a new deal this January that pushed that through. So that's a big step forward for this league. But that also does kind of put into perspective where this league falls in terms of they're not as competitive with the other top leagues around Europe in terms of domestic football.
They're not. Though we will give them a shout out that they were the first international team that paid their men and women the same for representing their country. And we saw recently that Denmark men were playing in their Nations League game and they were wearing the kits of their women's team. And Christian Eriksen shouted out the fact, that because he scored a goal and he went, the only reason I scored is because I had Pernille Harder's kit on. Like, they are very equality focused. I will give that to Denmark. When it comes to international football, nationally, they've got a long ways to go, but they seem to be repairing that. What
do we expect from them in terms of
not
play style?
Not a lot. Not a lot. I'm not going to lie, not a lot. I do think, unfortunately, this Denmark team reminds me so much of Australia of old, in the fact that when Australia used to just try and play everything through Sam Kerr, and then when Sam Kerr wasn't playing, they didn't know what to do. It feels like with me, it's that there's a lot of play through Pernille Harder, and if Pernille Harder's not there, or if, you know what, she's just not up to her normal standard, they don't have a plan B.
Yeah, I think that they're going to get rocked in terms of possession. I mean, this is a tough group for them. They drew Sweden and Germany, and that's who they're going to play in that order. So it's not like they even get a lead up to get some confidence and play Poland first. No, it goes for the group stages. They'll play Sweden first, Germany second, Poland third. So I think that they're going to get rocked in terms of possession, especially against Germany. I don't think that they'll really have much against Sweden either. And then it'll probably be a battle for third. I'm getting ahead of myself and into predictions, but that is unfortunately the style of play I expect from Denmark. It's simply that, unfortunately, they're not going to have the ball a lot. And when you don't have the ball a lot, it just kind of turns into transitional counterattack football. You don't really get to play your own style because you don't have the ball to play your own style. So that's what it'll be. I agree. They'll rely pretty heavily on Pernille Harder, and it won't work. Oof, brutal. But I'll root for them because I love that they pay their men and women equally.
Predictions time! Everybody's favourite bit. This is where me and Sarah run through how we think the group is going to end. And I'm going to be honest, this is the group that I think we're just going to instantly agree.
Yeah, should we just say it all at once?
Yeah.
Well, we've just agreed through everything here, so let's just go for it. Should I say it?
Yeah, so number 1.
Germany.
Number 2.
Sweden.
Number 3.
Denmark.
Number 4.
Poland.
I will add a caveat to mine in the fact that the only reason I think Denmark will go above Poland will be goal difference.
Mm-hmm. I can totally see them drawing, but Poland having conceded more goals.
Correct. That's exactly what I think. I think that the end game between them two is they will draw, but Poland will finish 4th because they will have conceded more to Germany and Sweden.
I don't know. I think Denmark will win that game, but I very much get why you think that. Either way, I think it'll go Germany goes through first, Sweden goes through second. Sweden the one thing we didn't say about Sweden, and I think this will come into play when we get into episode 5, which will be our full-blown tournament predictions, like who's going to win, who's going to go far. Sweden do know how to play tournament football. So, whether they go first or second, they could be really dangerous in the knockout rounds because they just know how to progress in tournaments, and that's a big skill to have. And that is it for us here at the Women's Soccer Show. A reminder to subscribe to our Patreon. We've got extra bits coming for you every single week, like News in 10. Plus, you get all of these episodes a full week early and a bunch of other great content like that as the Euros continue. But that's it for us here. This has been Group C. Stay tuned. Group D, the group of death, is dropping on Thursday, everybody. And that's it for us at the Women's Soccer Show. I've been Sarah.
And I've been Allie.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.